Oh, hi everyone, it's Crypto Granny here, Susie. I hope you're all well, living your life well, looking after a beautiful family, husbands and wives, and your beautiful children and animals, and just looking after other people, animals, and the environment in the world just to make this a better place. Now, what an exciting market, I've got to tell you. I'm so excited to look at this crypto market every day. You never know what's going to happen. It's very bullish at the moment. Keeping in mind, Bitcoin is not very far from its all-time high of 122,688, according to Live Coin Watch, currently at 118,148. Lots going on. So let's get on with this and some of the main news stories out there, which I'll look at obviously the stats with Live Coin Watch, but also the technicals, and then we'll have the main news stories that I'll mention over this recording as well. So let's look at market cap at the moment. 3.764 trillion, very, very cheap when you compare it to the equity markets and the bond markets, which, 120 trillion or more. Volume very high today at 221 billion, and liquidity is excellent at 10 billion. Now, that tells you that there's buyers in the market and there's big whales in this market because of the volume being done, okay? Plus, the liquidity is up quite a bit as well. It was about 9 billion a couple of days ago. Now it's moving higher. And you can see that with the way this market is trading. And some coins are certainly buying today are XRP, they're buying Binance, they're buying Chainlink, they're buying, Avalanche. We've seen that as well. There's been big plays in all those coins as well as Pepe. And, this setup, when you look at charts, particularly Tron, for example, it's like huge. There's some great stories for Tron, XRP today, as well as Binance, okay? Binance is a meganaut, and it should be the price of Ethereum. Yes, Binance should be at $3,000 per unit, okay? When you realize what Binance is doing, it is just mega. So we'll go through that as well. So Bitcoin today is just, doing consolidating here, ready for the next move up. I don't think anyone trying to sell Bitcoin, you got to be mad, particularly when BlackRock, who are getting in all this ETF money through getting, exposed to Bitcoin, they own already 3.3% of the supply of Bitcoin. And I'll send out a separate video for that for my clients. And every time someone buys, a Bitcoin ETF, BlackRock has to go and buy the equivalent Bitcoin in the physical market to hedge that position. So, this has got one way to go, people, up. There is no supply of Bitcoin. We saw a lot of whales overnight buying Bitcoin in the Asian markets, particularly Indian markets, and there's been big players also getting long Bitcoin again. And you can see that by the open positions on futures and derivatives, okay? It's as simple as that. Ethereum is at 83439, just starting to outperform Bitcoin a bit. Mind you, it has been down year to date. Bitcoin was up for a year 82%, and Ethereum was down 0.43, and you can see it with these figures here. Bitcoin dominance is coming down, which is good, and that's what we expected. I believe that dominance figure will come down to 35%. So Bitcoin will underperform certain cryptos, and it should. Okay, it's as simple as that. XRP is having a mega day today. There's a lot of bullishness around XRP. They got a big real estate agent client in the Middle East, and they're now using XRP Ledger for that tokenization of real estate. But also all the crypto regulation that's been put in play in the Senate. There's three acts in the Senate, one of them being the Genius Act, and obviously the Stablecoin Act looks very supportive for XRP stablecoin, okay? And that's great for XRP as well. Also, there was large whales buying Bitcoin, XRP overnight as well as Bitcoin. The whales bought billions of XRP, about 2.2 billion, according to resources that I use, and that's a lot of wedge. Okay, that's a lot of buying of XRP. Also, there's an XRP ETF that's going to start tomorrow, and that's why XRP is so bullish. And that's great for the market as well. Now, Binance has come out and said they're upgrading their technology, and they're going to be the interface between the crypto market as well as the financial markets, right? Binance is the biggest exchange out there. They are making billions of dollars, people. It is cheap down here at 722. Cheap, cheap, cheap. I got to tell you that. And they already can do 20,000 transactions per second. They can do swaps, they can do derivatives, they can do everything in terms of the financial markets, but they are also big in crypto. And they have well over 180, 220 million clients, right? We're talking mega nord here. They shouldn't be down at 5th place. Matter of fact, as I said, Binance should be second, where Ethereum is. I think it's a great story. And people, when they really look at the fundamentals of Binance, they're going to see this is a mega, mega buy. It really is. Just see if I can find that story for you. But it's a sensational story, to be perfectly honest. And, again, it's a great story for those guys, what they're doing, right? Oh, gosh, I can't find that story. It's always the way, isn't it? But there's been some great stories re XRP as well. These bills, as I've mentioned, coming out, they're very pro XRP. This fellow from that just talked about this Ripple X City, the Genius Act, which is guiding entrepreneurs through nationwide innovation in US stablecoins. And basically, if it gets passed, it legitimizes other stablecoins like USDC, US Tether, and also Ripple as well. So the market is bullish about that. But I think the market's more pro-bullish XRP because there's ETFs starting on the stock market tomorrow. And there will be flows re that. And I don't know how much XRP they need to buy. But don't forget, XRP does have a lot of volume out there. They still are holding quite a lot. Ripple, the entity, and we have to keep in mind of that as well, because total supply circulating at the moment is only 59 billion. And total supply is 99 odd billion off 100 because it's been burning. But circulating supply is 59, and the residual of 40 billion needs to come out into the market eventually. And it comes out every month. Don't forget that. But it's still a great story in itself. We did buy some XRP around, where did we buy it? It was at 229. So it's moved up $1 since then. It's been a great outperformer for us. Also, as I said, Binance is very cheap. Solana is starting to look very good. There's whales around buying Solana as well. Solana is $177. ADA at 0.81, Dodge at 2.217. Tron is the breakout. Tron took over a company called SRM on the stock exchange, and now they've called it Tron Inc. Tron should be much higher than 31 cents, okay? To think that Stellar is higher than Tron is just crazy. It really is crazy. When Tron has something like 210 million clients, and they are a mega nord, right? They are making a fortune on their exchange, and yet the coin is only at 31 cents. My best picks in this market for cheapness, seriously, are Binance, BCH, Tron, Hefe for sure, and a couple of others, okay? Even Fetch is cheap, and Link. There's a very, very bullish story, Link, how much money they're earning and how many clients they're putting on, and yet the coin is still only at $17. I'm expecting big things from Link, because even the big exchanges need to use Link. Everyone needs to use Link. And there's 35 million coins and tokens now in the market. 35 million. You wonder how people can possibly get, being in the right coin right when there's so many coins and tokens. And we've seen mega, expansion in the last 5 years and how many coins and tokens are in. Take it back, 5 years ago, there was about 2,500 coins and tokens. A coin is when it has its own platform. A token is when it doesn't have its own platform. So, BCH has been disappointing. Someone's trying to sell this thing. Every time it gets over 506, they try to sell it. Maybe it's because of Roger Van Der, or whatever his name is, there's an audit on him in terms of tax and compliance. But, that shouldn't affect BCH really. But there is a whale out there that's trying to get out of some reason. It's still extremely cheap when we look at where Bitcoin is to the relativity of BCH. Avalanche is having a run. Last week was at $17. Looks very good technically as well. Litecoin looks pretty good at $100. Could go higher. And certainly Pepe, my favorite meme, is at 4014, is going higher as well, and has outperformed pretty much this year as well. It's been a pretty great story, and I think it's going to continue to go higher. We do look at Crow, we do look at Dot, and we certainly look at Polygon, Matic, but they haven't performed very well this year, and we only tend to buy things that actually perform That's pretty much how we do this. So let's look at the technicals. It looks ultra bullish to me. Ultra bullish. I'm a big mega bull, people. Mega bull. Okay. And why would you want to sell this market? So grab yourself a cup of coffee wherever you are in the world, and let's look at the technicals and see what we can glean from the technicals. Thank you. Now, this is Bitcoin. USD tether on Binance, right? And when we take it right up to the 12 months, you can see how bullish this chart looks. And potentially you've got this green up tick, obviously. But this thing could go so much higher, right? These are 12-month 12-month time period, right? And if you basically manage to measure the red from the last fall, this could potentially go up as much as that red there, a next flight up, right? So why would you sell Bitcoin, right? You've got to be nuts, particularly when the ETFs are bringing in so much money on the stock exchange, all right? I do like to look at the long-term charts, because it takes all the noise out, okay? So even this move up, you're going to get the absolute breakout in this. I mean, technically, this looks fantastic, honestly, and it's a buy the dip market, people. You've got to buy the dip in this market. It's as simple as that. Why would you want to sell this, right? It did get to, as I said, mentioned, Bitcoin got to 122,658 or something. But, it's above all the moving averages. It's above the VWAP, value wrap at market price, volume weighted at market price. That's what VWAP stands for. And this is like technically so bull, it's not funny. It just tells you to buy the dips in Bitcoin and stay long, okay? It's as simple as that. If you look at the 4-hour, same sort of story. Yeah, we've got it so on there, but I'm a buyer of the dip. If this thing gets to 115 or something like that, we're going to go in again and buy. And I'm certain Micah Saylor of MicroStrategy is looking to buy as well, right? They're already sitting on billions of dollars of profits just from putting their money where their mouth is and buying Bitcoin in every dip. Even when Bitcoin got to 100,000, people thought he was crazy buying, but he put his money where his mouth is and he started buying more Bitcoin. Now, also, I've got to mention something too. Binance, there's another company called Wintermute that decided to set up a corporate treasury and they're buying Binance, okay? There was another company called Nano from China that are also buying Binance. Binance is setting up corporate treasuries for corporates where they can buy crypto. And the deal is, if you do it with us, Binance, me being Binance, if you do it with us, we give you a cryptocurrency portfolio. That is going to spur Binance's coin even higher and higher, okay? Crazy to sell Binance when it's a mega nort. All it has to do is list on the stock exchange like Tron, and the stock is going to be at something like $3,000 a share or something for the money they're making. It's insane. And they have no debt. No debt whatsoever. Now, people look at market valuation as a valuation tool. It's too simple because market valuation is only the issuance of how much crypto is out there by price. It doesn't look at the debt of these networks. It doesn't look at anything else. It doesn't look at the goodwill or the clients they've got or the revenue they've got or the annuity income or anything. The crypto market is actually pricing crypto wrong, and it makes crypto extremely cheap, as you can see by the market cap of crypto overall, right? At 3 point, what is it? What was it? We said 3.76 trillion, right? It's too cheap for what it is. That's for sure. So, I'm a bull, and any dip, I'm a buyer, okay? Let's have a look at Ethereum. It's one, I don't like Ethereum, but it will still go up in this market, given that it's going to be a bull market, right? The downside has broken, and this thing's going to go to probably around $4,000 or something. I know the whales are targeting 3,500, and if it gets through 3,500 as a level of resistance, they're going to push this higher. And that's pretty obvious with a bullish market, okay? Don't forget, Ethereum does make a lot of money with their stable coins, USD Tether for one, and USD Tether constantly issues. So there's more stable coins in the system where they've got to buy cryptocurrency, and Ethereum gets the benefit of that. But so does Tron, okay? And I'd rather buy Tron than Ethereum, absolutely, because I think Tron is a better story, and technically it looks fantastic, right? So let's have a look at Tron. Oops, not Perpetual. Let's go to the spot, I should say. let's have a look at now what I do with that. I want make sure you've got the right crypto here. We want the spot crypto, okay? But look, Tron is amazing. Yes, we had a big sell up here going back. This is the monthly, but that's where this thing's heading and higher, okay? This thing could be at $1 before we could say Jack Robinson. You know, it's got the goods, babies, in the woods. It's got the goods. The story is incredible. They took over SRM and they just changed the ticker from SRM to Tron. So now Tron is on the NASDAQ, right? This crypto generates daily, that I know about, probably more than $2 million in daily transactional fees. You know, transaction count exceeds 9 million a day. It is doing mega stuff, okay? Justin Sun knows what he's doing. And there's a big gap on the chart here. And this thing, once it gets through 44 cents, could be off to the races, right? It's got incredible revenue, incredible fees, incredible network, and it's getting more and more institutional interest. Tron is one of my best picks. It's one of my cheapest picks. And now that it's listed on the stock exchange, you know, the market's going to go much higher for Tron. It's in a big triangle here where it's going to break upwards, right? There is an overhead sell level, that's for sure, but it can fill that gap to 45 cents and be there before you can say Jack Robinson. I'm very, very bullish Tron. Okay, we look at the 4 hours again. You know, why would you sell Tron? Technically, it looks brilliant. Straight up, people, got the smile happening. It looks fantastic. Now, let's look at XRP. Everyone's excited about XRP, and understandably so, because it did not very much for a long time. But XRP looks very good technically now. It's broken out of that downtrend. You know, we were talking about going back, gosh, when we did the last technicals, you know, it had to hold $2.20, right? And if it broke down below 2.12, down below $2, it was a sell. But luckily, we put on a trade where we bought at 2.29. We had a stop loss type at 2.20, and we reaped the rewards out of that. So the whales are looking at 350 on XRP. If it breaks 350, its previous high, then potentially it could go to $6 or something like that. But we just have to see how it trades in the next couple of days with the XRP ETF coming out, okay? Which I think is by ProView or something like that. And see how she goes. But technically, she looks very good, and there's no point looking at longer term charts. Resistance is pretty much up at this sort of level, 350, something like that. Resistance, that level there. But we'll just have to see how she goes. She looks pretty good to me. And, you know, any dip you've got to buy as far as I'm concerned. Let's have a look at Pepe. Again, Pepe's broken the downside. Pepe could have a huge move, right? And take out its previous high of 0.00402783. We are buying Pepe. We are in buy mode for Pepe. It looks fabulous, okay? Absolutely fabulous. Now, what else can we look at here? Oh, yeah, Litecoin. We've got some Litecoin as well. People are forgetting about Litecoin, but it is the second derivation of Ripple and has second derivation of Bitcoin, has underperformed actually. And I think Litecoin, you might get a bit of a run out of it as well. It's a very clean network. They do a lot. People that play gaming do a lot in Litecoin, right? They use Litecoin. It's been consolidating for a long time. Look at this monthly, and this could break out topside to a previous high of $414. So again, Litecoin looks pretty good to me. It's broken out of the downtrend, looking ready to move up. And technically, the 4 hours on Litecoin looks very good. We're getting a lot more buyers here and a lot more interest. So keep an eye out for that one as well. What else do we want to look at here? Binance, ADA, Dodge, Tron, no. H-bar is interesting. Very interesting. Let's look at BCH. We do have a lot of BCH. And I believe that I will be right on BCH. We just need to be patient, people. That's all. Let's have a look at someone's clearly selling this. We go to the 4 hours. We can see this at every level. Stopping them from rallying. I'm not sure why they're doing that, but eventually this thing will break out because it's spending too much time here. Under $500, it's very, very cheap. There was one day when this thing was up 20%, right? And the buyers will come back because it's too cheap against Bitcoin. And don't forget, it's the best derivation of Bitcoin, right? If you can't afford to buy Bitcoin, you buy BCH in an investment portfolio. And that's why we're overweight BCH, because the relativities to Bitcoin make BCH very, very cheap indeed. And another one we want to look at is Link. I love Link. Don't forget, if you want to get in contact with me, my WhatsApp is on my video. Let's have a look at Link. Link looks brilliant, people. Brilliant. It's cheap as cheap. The last high was $55. We go back here. Let's have a look at that high. Going back, $52.85, right? All-time high. It's cheap, babes. Link is cheap. And to think that Avalanche was 146 and now it's only 23 bucks. Again, very, very cheap, right? Litecoin was a 413. It's now at 100. I mean, this is nuts, right? The market is still really, really cheap. So, you know, no matter what technical I look at in terms of our top holding of 20 coins or so, they all look so cheap. This is going to be a mega rally, people, like we've never seen before. And the risk is you sell too early. It is a buy the dip market in some of the coins that I mentioned. And, you know, getting short is just nuts for selling your portfolio too early. And that's where my skill comes in, to make sure you run in the right coin and to make sure you buy at the right levels and don't sell too early. Now, that's enough of me. I hope you enjoy my news stories. Yeah, onwards and upward. I'm very bullish this market, people. Very, very bullish indeed. Thank you for listening, and here are the main news stories on the day.